Welcome to It's Been How Long? The podcast about Cherry Hill High School East students from the late 1970s and early 80s. This is Cara Siegel. So today we have Jeff Lyons. He is our inaugural podcast guest on It's Been How Long? A podcast about Cherry Hill High School East students from the late 1970s and early 80s. Welcome, Jeff, and thank you for agreeing to be on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Kara. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, so here we are, Jeff, 40 years plus post-graduation from high school. So what are you up to?
I work for CSC, a company in Wilmington, Delaware. It's a business services company. We do keep companies in compliance, do digital brand services, stuff like that. I'm in the marketing department on the internal communications team, and I do a lot of writing and editing. It's a lot like I did in my daily newspaper days, but without the putting out 2 editions a night. It's a much slower, more manageable corporate pace, and I like it a lot.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So what do you do for fun? How do you enjoy spending your time?
Spend a lot of time with my family, play with my dog, my 9.5-year-old German Shepherd who's sacked out on the floor over here.
Wendy the Wonder
Uh,
Dog, the
Wendy
Weather
the
Dog.
Wonder, Wendy the Weather Wonder Dog, and watch a lot of Philly sports and stream stuff. Go to the beach, dine out. Nothing fancy.
Uh, were you things that you enjoyed doing back in high school? Are you still doing them?
Um, yeah, pretty much.
Did you belong in any clubs, any teams, any?
I was part of the newspaper staff. I was on East Side. I was part of Eidolon, the
Let me
yearbook
ask you a
staff.
question. East Side, how often was that published?
I don't even remember. I maybe monthly. I don't know. It wasn't very
Oh,
often. It seemed like, but I had a couple of bylines there, and for the yearbook, I took a lot of photos, and I was looking through the yearbook recently, and I was really surprised at how many photos of mine are in there.
oh, really?
Yeah, it's crazy. And just walking around with the camera because I really got into photography with Mrs. Bieberbach's class. She
I,
was the photo teacher along with Bill Kovnat.
oh, I was gonna say I
And
remember Bill Kovnat, but I don't
I,
remember.
I had Bill for the filmmaking class, and I had Mrs. B for photography, and I just got really into it. And it came in handy later on because when I worked for the Philadelphia Bar Association, I was the managing editor of publications. So I put out a monthly newspaper, quarterly magazine, 3 email updates a week. I did social media.
Oh,
I did podcasts, and I was the official photographer.
oh, wow.
So yeah, I did everything but park the cars at major events.
I was gonna say you
Yeah.
you were a one-man show.
hmm
Well, that's great. So sorry. So did you have a job back in high school?
Yeah, I worked at Veterans Stadium in Philly as a vendor. I worked at Phillies games, Eagles games, and whatever concerts they had at the dearly departed JFK Stadium.
Oh,
So I was there for the Rolling Stones in '81. I was there for Live Aid in '85. I was We even sold souvenirs when the Pope came into Philly in 1979, I think it was.
wow. So any other activities you did in high school?
Um, Belonged to BBYO, B'nai B'rith Youth Organization. I was pretty active in that. And yeah, that's about it.
All right. So what did you do after graduation?
I went to Temple University in Philly, where I started out as a broadcast journalism major. And after like 2 semesters, I realized how cutthroat broadcast journalism was. And I wanted to be a real journalist. So I switched to the print track. And I worked on the Temple News, and I was editor of the humor magazine, Spice Magazine.
Oh, that's cool.
for a semester, and that was fun. And yeah, I wanted to be this crusading newspaper reporter or sports writer. I figured since I couldn't play sports, I could write about sport. Well, I could play sports, but just not well enough to get paid for it.
Oh, that's
But
it.
I could
That's the
write about
key.
them well enough to get paid for it.
Yeah. That's good. Well, you had a big hand in my golf game, so
Well, yeah, you were such a good golfer, you had to become a physician, so it
that's
worked.
true. That's how it worked. Yes.
Yeah.
So after college, where'd you go? What'd you do?
My first job, well, got a job as a stringer, a part-time reporter at the Courier Post in Cherry Hill, as part of the sports department. I covered high school sports. I covered girls soccer, high school football, boys and girls basketball. And then I got my first full-time newspaper job. I was hired by Today's Sunbeam in Salem County, New Jersey,
Hmm.
which had a circulation at the time of about 10,000 souls in Salem County.
Okay.
And I
Where
worked
where
there
is
for about,
sorry, where is Salem County?
you know where the Delaware Memorial Bridge is?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
That's
Salem
Salem.
County.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And even though it was the Salem Sunbeam, or Today's Sunbeam, based out of Salem, they shared a newsroom in Woodbury with the Gloucester County Times because they were owned by the same company. So somebody from the Times had moved on to a different job, and they hired me to take his place at the Gloucester County Times. So I moved over one desk, but switched newspapers. And I worked at the Gloucester County Times for about 2.5 years as a reporter and editor. And then my plan was to jump to bigger newspapers with each move, with my like goal of getting to like the Philadelphia Inquirer or another paper of that stature. And after that, one of my friends at Gloucester County Times got hired by the Bucks County Courier Times in Levittown, and they had an opening there, and she put in a word for me, and I got in there. I was there for a year. Yeah, I was there for a year, and I ran into Dave Cohen, another Cherry Hill East alumni who
Yeah.
graduated a year behind us. He was on the copy desk at the Courier Post, and they were looking for somebody. He put in a word for me, and I got hired there. And I was on the copy desk, the news desk, and the sports desk there for 12 years.
Oh, wow.
And in between there, I got married and had a kid. And by like 2000, the internet was starting to be a thing, and they were starting to put stories online, and I could see, what was coming, that newspapers were going to start to die. And my son was also at a point where he was going to be starting kindergarten, and I was working nights and weekends.
Oh, wow.
And if I was working nights and weekends and he started kindergarten, I figured I'd never see him. So I started looking for, you know, a 9 to 5 job. And I saw an ad in the Philadelphia Inquirer back when there used to be, classified ads. And they were looking for somebody to run their publications at the Philadelphia Bar Association. I applied and got hired and was there for almost 15 years.
Wow.
And after that, I worked at a law firm in Center City for a couple of years. I then worked at a little pharmaceutical company in Delco for about 8 months until my job was eliminated, which was fun. I was out of work for 6 months
Oh,
and applied for more than 300 jobs and finally got hired by the American College of Physicians in Center City, which is basically the bar association for doctors.
yeah.
And I was there for 2.5 years with really not much to do.
Oh,
And so I started looking, after I'd been there for about 6 months, I started looking for something. And I found CSC, and I was supposed to go down to Wilmington for an interview, but then COVID happened.
oh, wow.
And I got interviewed by 5 people virtually for 2.5 hours.
Oh, wow.
And I got hired in April 2020. And I worked completely virtually for, the first year and a half, I guess. And I didn't even set foot in the building for 6 months after I got hired. I met one of my coworkers down in Wilmington for lunch, and we had lunch there on a Saturday. And then she took me on a tour of the building so I could see, where I actually worked. And I saw my desk and it even had my name on it and everything,
That's
which I thought
funny.
was nice. and I've been there. It was 3 years in April, and I love it. And I just wish I would have found it earlier, so I could have spent more of my career there.
Well, so
Yeah,
yeah, but that's
yeah,
been quite
I,
a varied career.
yeah. But it's been mostly the same stuff, writing and editing.
Mm.
Not too much variation because we have a saying in our family: we can't math, so we're stuck to words.
All right. So where are you now?
I'm in my dining room in Downs Farm in Cherry Hill, a mere 4 blocks away from the house that I grew up in. Because Cherry Hill's a good place to raise a family. And when my wife and I got married and decided to have a kid, we wanted to live in Cherry Hill because the schools are so great. So we got a little starter house in Kingsway Village, which is tucked between Brace Road and Crescent Road, just south of Ponzios and Route 70.
Oh wow.
It's this little neighborhood of bungalows. They're like 2-bedroom houses. It was like 700 square feet. It
Mm.
was tiny, but we got our starter house there. We were there for about 12 years, and we started to outgrow it when we got a parakeet. We were being pushed for space, and then the kid came along, and then we really needed more space, and we found a house in Downs Farm, and familiar with the neighborhood because I grew up here. So Sam, our son, ended up going to Horaceman School, where I went to. He went to Rosa Middle School, which used to be Heritage, which
Right.
I went to, and you went to,
Yes.
and he went to East and graduated there from where we went to.
That's right.
And
What was his graduating class year? You remember?
uh, 14,
Oh wow.
class of 14. Yeah, I remember when eighth grade was wrapping up, like a week before school. He was nervous about not knowing where any of his classes were going to be. So I said, "All right, let me see your schedule. Let's go over there." So we went over there, like a week before school started. The building was unlocked, and I remembered where everything was.
Mm.
Like 35 years later, it was crazy. I don't know how, but I just did. So I basically wrote him up directions. All right, your first class is in B wing. You want to go here. Now, to get to C wing, you're going to need to come all the way towards the front of the building, cut across, all that kind of stuff. I said, avoid C wing intersection at all costs. But the size of the student population at East has really dropped from when we were there.
Oh
When we
really?
were there were more than like 3,000 kids,
Yeah.
and I think now there's like 1,500, 1,800.
Oh really?
Yeah, so it's a lot more manageable.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but
What's the drop? Just the overall population? Is there another high school?
no, it's still East and West. I think it has to do with the population aging and younger families moving in and out and stuff like that.
Mm.
But I guess we were just there, at the right time when it was the perfect storm of population and having 800 some odd kids in our class.
Yeah. Yeah. So is there a class or a teacher at East that influenced you well beyond high school?
Um, yeah, there were a couple. There was Matt Carr, who was in the English department, and he taught the journalism class at East. And I knew I wanted to get in the field, but after I had that class, I thought, yeah, this is definitely what I wanted to do. And Bill Kovnat, just because he's just such a good teacher and a goofball, and I could
Yeah.
really relate to him. And I've stayed in touch with him over the years. And he took photos of our wedding, me and my wife's wedding, not our
Yeah.
wedding,
No, no.
and the weddings of both my sisters,
Oh wow.
and our
Just
son
about
Sam
everybody
got,
in our class, I think.
yeah,
He took ours. Yeah.
and our son Sam got married last September, and Bill wasn't available, but his wife was.
Oh, okay.
So his wife Chrissy took the pictures, but Bill showed up for a few hours and was hanging out with us, and it was just the circle of life. And it's
Yeah.
pretty cool to have him there.
Yeah, that is cool. So do you have friends from East that you stay in touch with?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a core of people I stay in touch with. For a while, when we were all still living up here, Rob Thurston, Eddie Denkin, and Scott Wishart and I would all go out to lunch like once a month. We'd either eat in, have lunch in South Jersey or a lot of times they came into Center City because I was working in the city, and their schedules were a lot more flexible than I was.
Yeah,
But Scott has moved to Delaware County. Rob has moved to the UK, and Eddie's down in North Carolina where you are.
that's
So,
right.
you
Yeah.
know, they still need to come to me. But
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 now you can do it virtually.
it's not as much fun.
No,
It's
no, for
nowhere
sure.
near as much fun. We tried it a couple times.
Yeah.
When they're like three of the four of us are available, we'll bring somebody in by phone, but it's just not quite the same. The ball
No.
busting just, it's there, but it's not as much fun unless we're all there together.
Oh, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Um, did you have a high school sweetheart?
No, I did not.
Okay.
And
But you did.
unless you count the Philadelphia Phillies.
Okay.
And
They
that's a
broke
that's a
your
whole
heart.
love yeah, that's a
No, I
whole
guess
love-hate relationship.
that fall they won, right? 80s?
Yeah,
In
yeah,
1980? They
after we
won?
graduated,
After
they
we
won the
graduated.
pennant. They won the
Yeah.
World Series in
Yeah.
1980 when we were freshmen in college,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I was there.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. Um, so you didn't have a high school sweetheart, but you
Nope.
got married, have kids. How'd you meet your wife?
Kid.
Kid.
Uh, yes, kid, singular. Um, when I was working at the Gloucester County Times, I was on the news desk one Sunday night, and I had a question for my editor. So I went into his office, and he's got some resumes spread out on his desk. And I asked him my question, and he said, "Oh, we were, there was an opening for a features editor." And he had these resumes spread out on his desk. He said, "We need a features editor. Who should I bring in for an interview?" So I'm looking at the resumes, and I point to one. And I said, "No, how about her? Give her a break. She's young. Give her a chance." He gave me a chance. It's like, okay. And, I asked my question. I'm leaving the office. He goes, "All right, we'll give her a chance." He goes, "Maybe we'll get you a girlfriend out of the deal." So, yeah, Pam and I met at the Gloucester County Times. And I guess it was like 1988. And we got married in 91, and it'll be 32 years in September.
That's so tough. Yeah.
Thank you.
So did you have any friends that you were tight with that you lost contact with after graduation?
Um, I guess it's, pretty much like life.
Yeah.
People, filter in and out of your life, but the people I still see people or, reach out on Facebook or whatever, but there's nobody who's really like vanished from my life except for, uh, somebody like Bill Muller who passed away a couple of
Mhm.
years ago.
Yeah.
We're pretty good friends in high school, and that was kind of a shock. But I still talk to the people I want to talk to, and
Yeah.
run into people, because I still live in Cherry Hill, and a lot of other
Right.
people still live in the area.
Yeah. Have you found, and I mean, with Facebook, sort of connecting with people who maybe you weren't friendly with or as friendly with, and has that led to any, you know, friendships or interactions or?
Yeah, I mean, I knew of Reggie Wu in East.
Mhm.
He was like the legendary guitar guy,
Mhm.
and I've gotten to know him a little bit on Facebook, and I see him when out and about. Uh, Pam and I were out at dinner at this place in Voorhees a couple weeks ago, and Reggie was getting out of his car with his daughter and his wife and his grandson.
Oh,
I'm like,
wow.
"Hey, Reg, is this the famous grandson?" He's like, "Hey, bud, how you doing?"
Yeah.
We met the baby and stuff, so that was cool. And but reach out to people every so often. And yeah, I mean, Facebook has pretty much eliminated the need for high school reunions.
But then you're not in person, so, getting in
Yeah,
person
but
it
still,
makes a bit of, yeah.
I don't know. You stay in touch with the people you want to stay in touch with.
Yeah.
Like, I'll see Deborah Smead every once in a while. She'll come back into town and hang out with her for a little bit.
Yeah.
Jane Baumgartner comes back into town from to time, and there's a group of us that hang out. Who else? Um, 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 Gary Snegeroff,
Yeah.
who works in the entertainment industry in LA. he'll come into town from time to time, and I see him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but people I was friends with and or knew, and you still run into them and say hi.
Yeah. So other than Reggie Wu, who's the most famous person that you've met in your life?
Most famous person I've met in my life. Well, let's see. When
I
I was a
mean,
vendor
oh yeah.
at the vet, I sold sodas to. They were not together. George Thorogood
Oh,
of the Delaware Destroyers
stories. Yeah.
and Donald Sutherland,
Oh wow.
the actor. He
Yeah.
was a huge Montreal Expos fan,
Oh wow.
and I think he was living in New York. And whenever the Expos were in Philly, he would come down and watch the play. And I also ran into Dave Matthews literally one day in Philly. I was going into the Bellevue Stratford. They had a food court in the basement of the hotel, and it's like hotel and offices now. I was going in to go to the food court, and he was surrounded by burly technicians, and he was coming out, and I actually bumped into him.
Oh
I'm like,
wow.
"Oh, hey, oh, hi, Dave. Sorry, love your music." And through my work at the bar association, I get to meet some famous people. I met Justices O'Connor
Hmm.
and Ginsburg
Oh wow.
and Scalia
Oh wow.
and Senator Arlen Specter, who was kind of a dick. Oh, he busted my balls big time.
Oh.
This one event we had him at, I had to ask him to. We were recording the event so people who couldn't attend could listen on our podcast channel, and I had to ask him, to sign the release form.
Oh yeah.
And in front of a room of like 300 people, he's just busted my balls. And I just like turned to the associate executive director and just said, Paul, we get him to sign this. Just, yes, I'm not a fan.
All right. So, any standout memories from high school, moments, highs, lows?
Um, Not really. I was kind of, you know, I wasn't like a jock and I wasn't like the super involved guy. I was just like one of the regular people in the class. And my goal was just to make it through without anything bad happening, keep my grades up enough so I could get into college and do my thing. But nothing really ridiculous stands out.
Anything you wish classmates knew about you then, or you want to tell them now?
I, I just wish I hadn't been so afraid. I was like so afraid of like screwing up or doing the wrong thing. I wish I would have lived a little, maybe gone to a couple of more parties or something like that. Because I didn't have my first beer until I was like in college. I think I didn't drink. I never tried weed. I still never smoked a joint. I've tried edibles in the last year or so, but I never did any of that stuff. But I just wish I would have been a little more, adventurous and not as
Mhm.
afraid all the time.
um, so clearly you've been back in the building. You mentioned that, and
Yeah.
did it when you walked in? And I know you said you remembered everything. Did it elicit any feelings? Take you back to a moment, or just
Um,
being a
it,
dad?
it felt smaller.
Mm.
It was weird. I remember one day I had to take Sam to some kind of appointment. I had to go into the office with him to sign him in late. And the former basketball coach, John Valori, was in the hallway. And senior year, I was the PA announcer for boys basketball team at games.
That's cool.
And I went over and said, "Hey, coach, how you doing? I don't know if you remember me, but I did the PA senior year. It was a lot of fun. You even gave me a varsity letter." He had no clue who I was, but so many kids over the years, it's understandable. And I guess I'm not one of his players, so I don't blame him for not remembering me. I don't know if
Yeah.
I'd remember me if I went to high school.
uh, so we're back in 1980, and
Mhm.
you've just graduated, and you're looking down the road 40 years. Is this where you are now? Is this where you thought you'd be?
Kinda, I guess. I mean, I always knew I wanted to stay in the area because close to Philly, 15 minutes by train, can get to the ballpark in 15 minutes. Uh, the shore, an hour, hour and a half, depending on where you're going. New York City, 90 minutes. DC, 2.5, 3 hours. You know, like, you're in the middle of everything. I always knew I wanted to stay in the area. And I don't know. Like I said earlier, I thought I'd be working at at the Inquirer or a big paper like that, and I'd be in newspapers my whole life. But that didn't pan out. But things have turned out okay.
That's great. So, what's the best piece of advice you'd give to your 18-year-old self, or maybe you gave to your 18-year-old son?
Well, like I said before, don't be so afraid. Have some fun. Release your inner goofball. I remember when Sam was in first grade, we had a parent teacher conference, and he did kindergarten at a Montessori school because we needed him to be in a full day program. At Cherry Hill, and we had half day kindergarten, and it was real one on one intensive stuff at Montessori. And when he got to first grade, it was different. He was in a class of 25 or 30 kids, and we had a conference with his teacher, and she said, Sam's a good student, but he's really quiet. But at home, he's this rambunctious goofball, never shuts up, loud, everything's so, we thought the teacher was talking about a different kid, but we got home from and said, you know, just have fun, release your inner goofball, just
Yeah.
be you. So yeah, I told that to him, and I wish I would have taken that advice,
And
because
be you as a goofball.
yeah, but a more social goofball. I don't know, more involved goofball.
I remember you did a stand-up bit, didn't you? Didn't you do stand-up one night at
Oh God, yes.
do you
There was
remember
an
that?
yeah,
What
there
was the
was an
name of that
open
place?
mic.
Yeah, open mic at
I
what was the
forget the
name of
name of the place. It was
we
on
all
Clemens
showed
Bridge.
up. You what?
It was on Clemens Bridge Road in Runnymede. I don't remember the name of the place, but
Yeah.
yeah, I decided to do it, and I wrote my material that afternoon.
Wow.
And oh God, I'm sure I know the building still stands, and I think the tombstone is still up there on the stage. Jeff Lyons died this night, but I mean, it's something I always wanted to do, and I did it. I mean, I got some laughs, but for the most part, I
Yeah.
died, but I did it.
There you go. That is
And
a hard thing to do.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was terrifying and thrilling at the same time. But
There you
I
go.
got it out of my system, and
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so we're gonna go through with our fast and furious finish.
the lightning
Um,
round.
the lightning round. Here we go.
All right.
So did you have a favorite TV show or movie or book back in our high school days?
It would have to be Monty Python and the Holy Grail
Yes. I think
because
that
I
was on an
remember
endless loop in Kovnat's, or maybe it was the senior lounge, but I always thought it was Kovnat's room.
it was in the senior lounge, and I remember leading up like the couple days before Christmas break, our senior year, they showed it in all the English classes and all the art classes. So I got to see it like 3 times a day, twice a day, and that was a whole thing. And I saw Spamalot on Broadway twice,
Yeah.
and I went to a with Rob, Eddie, and Scott up in Doylestown. They had a Monty Python and the Holy Grail screening, and people came and dressed up and everything,
Yeah.
and we just went as
Clap, clap.
ourselves.
Clap, clap,
And they
clap,
had
clap.
they had a trivia contest at the beginning, and I won a can of Spam for answering a question correctly. I don't remember what the question was.
That's great. So how about favorite musical group, artist, or genre?
I remember senior year, or I don't know if it was junior or senior year. I was head over heels, passionately in love with Pat Benatar.
Wow.
Oh my God, I thought she was the hottest thing,
Yeah.
and I just listened to her stuff over and over and over again. And the Cars' first record is, I think, still my favorite album of all time. I just love that. Just,
Mhm.
I think it stands up, 40, 45 years later.
Yeah. Uh, Did you have a favorite place to eat or hang out back in high school? And when was the last time you were there? If it's still around?
It is no longer there. The Cowtail Bar at Holly Ravine at the corner of Springdale and East Elm Roads, which is now a shopping center anchored by a Wawa and a CVS.
That's right. That's right.
But yeah, we'd all go there and hang out because Michelle Shank, who lived in our neighborhood, was a waitress there,
Yeah.
and we used to go and sit there and annoy her because she was at one point she was dating Scott, and then she dated Tim Wiley, who she ended up marrying, and I think they're still together.
Mm.
But we'd go there and hang out, and yeah, that was fun. And I remember there was another place at the Woodcrest Shopping Center. It started out as a movie theater. I think it was like the Jerry Lewis movie theater, and then it converted it to an arcade and pool hall.
Oh wow.
And then it turned into a tire store, and now it's empty. But I
Mm.
remember we used to go there a lot, and I remember Scott Wishart picking me up, and I'm walking out of the house, and I tell my mom, "All right, mom, I'm going out to play Pac-Man." And she was convinced that Pac-Man was a drinking game to see who could drink a six-pack the
Oh,
fastest.
that's a great
But
drinking game your mom invented.
yeah, but she should have known that nerdy me, it was just video games.
Yeah. All right. So grab this here. Show this to the world. Let me
Oh
see if I can
God,
get this in there. There you are.
there I am.
There you are. So, did you like your high school yearbook photo and quote?
The photo, yeah. I mean, I don't. For some reason, I don't smile in photos. It's just a thing. And my quote was stupid, and I would have either not had one or used something a lot better.
So just for people to know, it says,
No, 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 no. It was stupid.
I may be crazy, but I'm not stupid.
Yeah, but my
Okay,
quote
so
was
last question here. What
okay.
was the name of our high school yearbook? You should know this because you were on the yearbook staff.
Eidolon.
Okay, so bonus is what
I
it
don't know
is.
what it means. No idea. I don't know
So,
who came up with it, but it's stupid.
yeah, well, I think it's been around for a while because my brothers graduated ahead of me, and I think both their yearbooks say Eidolon. Well, it's from the Greek. It means apparition or phantom, or an ideal or idealized figure. So I don't know. Maybe Deborah Smead will know more about that. So since you were on the yearbook staff, where did this Western theme thing come from? Do you have any idea?
I don't know, but I always thought that was kind of weird since we were East and to have a
Yeah,
Western
Western
theme. It
theme.
didn't,
Yeah,
and I don't know, the wild,
we.
wild East.
So my quest is going to be trying to figure that. Maybe Deborah will know. My quest is to
Yeah.
try to figure out where did that come from. And there must have been a yearbook meeting where somebody said, "This is a brilliant idea. This is what our yearbook's going to be."
Either that or they got a really good deal on, hey, if you do it this Western theme, maybe the yearbook company had this overstock of faux Western wood covers and we got a good deal on it and they didn't cost as much.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Jeff, anything else you want to add or say to our viewing and listening audience?
I don't know why I just thought of this, but did you get a school ring at East? A
I did
class ring?
not. I did not.
I got one. I don't know why. I
Mhm.
didn't get one in college. I
Yeah.
was just, I don't know, it just popped into my head. Whatever the hell happened to that thing?
Oh,
Because remember back then it was like crazy expensive, but
yeah.
it was like $75, which back
Yeah.
in 1979, 1980 was
Was
a shitload of money.
Yes. Yes.
But now,
When you're
lucky if you
making
can spend,
$2 or whatever was minimum wage back then, it was crazy expensive.
yeah, when I was at the stadium, I made $2.10 for every tray of sodas that I sold.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't even,
Yeah.
yeah. So you were a per, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But I don't know why I just thought of the high school ring thing, but it's probably buried in a box somewhere.
yeah, yeah. Well, Jeff, thank you for joining us. Thank you for agreeing to join us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, that's a wrap today, and thanks for being our inaugural podcast interview. Thanks for joining me on It's Been How Long? The podcast about Cherry Hill High School East students from the late 1970s and the early 80s. A shout out to my cousin Brad Corbett, whose podcast We Weren't Friends in High School inspired me to do this podcast and whose advice and encouragement have been so helpful. Thanks also to my husband, Randy Coughdale, who read all the fine print on the podcast hosting website so I wouldn't have to. And thanks to Jeff Lyons, content consultant and guinea pig, and to Deborah Smead, also content consultant. And thank you to all our classmates who are listening in. See you next week.